people of the World Wide Web. So when this video goes out, this is essentially the first review of 2024 because I saw the movie on the 2nd of January. This will be in the series and the listing for the first movie of 2025, but this will be in the listing for 2024, and I will explain that. Essentially, yeah, I just had a lot on over Christmas and other stuff, and I wasn't able to go to the cinema. This was released, and I go by the year the movie was released. I wanted this to at least be taken into account for my 2024 video, or best 10 movies of 2024, which will be coming out on the Sunday. You would have already seen probably the premiere pop up, so that's why I went to see this. So anybody who does or doesn't know, hasn't seen the trailer, this is essentially a kind of biography of Robbie Williams' life from being a young lad to, I would probably say, not quite present day, but close to present day as far as I'm aware. I'm not a massive Robbie fan. I used to like his albums. Me and my friend always used to listen to them in our teenage years, in the CD phase when he had the stuff recorded at the end of the albums. So this is done. This is Better Man. He is portrayed as a monkey, and I think there are reasons for that, and I'll explain that in a bit of time. But yeah, it's basically his life, the ups and downs, something like this. I did enjoy it. There is nothing, as far as I'm aware, after the end credit scenes, but there are pictures of him in the credits, and then I think there is a notion to something that happens that I won't say, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. I did enjoy it, but we'll stick the spoiler warning up and we shall get into it. So yes, as I said, this is the story of Robbie Williams. This is directed by Michael Grassi. I think it's his second directorial debut. The first one was obviously The Greatest Showman, which I absolutely loved. I was a big fan of the trailer. For this movie is exactly the same. I heard about it, I wasn't too fussed. I saw the trailer, I think, on the beginning of a movie just before Christmas. I want to say maybe it's The War for Rohenheim or that, and I saw the trailer for this, and watching the trailer I was like, actually, I think this is going to be a really good movie. Got me in. You have recordings of Robbie Williams that are laced over this, and he's like a narrator, so to speak. There is a young lad called Johnny Davis. He plays the monkey, the adult version of him. Obviously there are different versions of Robbie because he starts off as a kid. The only major person I know was Stephen Pemberton, who plays his dad in this, and I'll just refer to him as mum, dad and aunt because you won't get, it's more easier to get the context of that. But yeah, essentially this starts the story. It has Robbie narrating it and says, like, this is his life. He is a very good character, and how they've got his dialogue, obviously it comes direct from Robbie Williams from some interviews, I believe. So it's kind of, they've taken his kind of character and laced it into this story, which I think works really well. So we start off, he's a young lad. Obviously he's called Robert, not Robbie. They are choosing football teams. He's very young, scrawny, and unfortunately he's the last one to pick, and he's not very good, and it just shows him of how he wants to be something more. He comes home, his dad's watching Sinatra on TV, and him and his dad is a performer, and he wants to be the same, and it's basically him feeling very, not necessarily collected, but down, wanting to be something, but feeling like a very outcast. He's young, he's skinny and stuff like this. His nan is kind of his biggest hero because he lives with his nan, his mum and his dad. And that's what it is. So this is where the first years start to, you see him as a kid, and obviously him, still, even when he's singing Sinatra with his dad, he knocks the antenna off the radio. His dad's very angry at him, so he still feels a bit of an outsider, but only his gran seems to be the one to kind of really think he's got potential. Fast forward, obviously we then go to him being a teenager, him being at school, what he wants to do, and he wants to sing. He's got these song lyrics, they're not that good, but obviously he has these aspirations, and that's where he's always been. He's not very good at school, as it kind of tells, because he's a little bit rebellious. And then it is coming across, there's an interview for a boy band in Manchester, and this is where he goes along. He auditions, his audition isn't that great. As he goes to leave, he has this kind of notion to kind of go up to the record producer and just say, look, do you want to get rid of all these? And he gives him a little wink, and he credits this little kind of stunt to kind of get him noticed. So obviously while this is then going, his dad, who has left to a football game when he was a young kid and hasn't returned, then contacts him to go, you know, stay with him. He's kind of a holiday park entertainer. That's what he's left his family to do because he wants to be in the spotlight. So he's more focused on his job and his family, which is a bit of shame. And obviously Robert at this time does be affected by it. When he's with his dad, you find out he failed all his GCSEs, he's not going to qualify. He goes home to face his mum after having a nice time with his dad. And before he gets to tell his mum, he gets told that he's in the boy band. So this is when then you get to see him within Take That, and obviously he wants to be more. Obviously, when he's brought in, it depicts Take That as basically these are the characters that they are. Gary is the talent. He's the one that writer, even though he's not a very good dancer, as he makes a joke of. But I thought that was quite funny. The bloke who put them together kind of has them focus on the gay scene, and that's where they are for the first year and a half. They don't make a lot of money. I think he says like make 150 quid in like a year and a half touring each. And then it all kind of combinates of the gay scene isn't working. They do a performance for young girls. Obviously the girls absolutely love him. Then one of the girls that is in one of these, their dad's a record producer, he manages to sign them, and then they get big. As you were going on, and Robbie is obviously slightly getting older, you see he starts to get more and more in his drugs. And the reason why he's getting these drugs, every time he performs, he sees a kind of image of himself, and this is what it's displayed with a different style kind of chimp in the audience of like he's not good enough, and it is him spiraling down. He takes too much drugs until he has one performance and he's basically rubbish. Then this is when Take That decide to, you know, they don't want him in the band. He says like that's fine. He leaves. And then he wonders what he wants to do and kind of want to make it on his own. This is when he meets the Appleton sister. And this is where they make friends before they All Saints. He gets with her. There is a shocking revelation, which I'll keep out of this thing. There is something that happens between them that you don't get to see, that is kind of influenced by their record producer, which is quite shocking, but it isn't the worst thing I've heard from the Hollywood scene. And not the Hollywood scene of, you know, like if you want to be a star and that, there's a certain pressure that people put people on in the olden time, you know, 90s, 2000s, so probably even now, but we just don't see it. Obviously they have this relationship. It kind of is, he does love her, but he is just not in the best of place, and he's a very destructive force between this. He goes down a very chaotic road being in this relationship, and then by the kind of end of it, as the relationship ends, he then manages to find the right person to work with to get some of his music out, and rather than him trying to be what everybody wants him to be, he kind of opens himself up, which is there's a really great scene with this record producer. Then basically he wants to always work, I think it's net worth, he wants to work at this big stadium because obviously there's a confrontation between him and Liam Gallagher earlier on, which he does. But he's just so worse on the drugs leading up to this. His life has got worse and worse. His wife has left him, he's trashed his house. To the point he rips off the front door and he's laying in his pond, river, whatever, and his dad comes along and they have a big confrontation, and he's hit rock bottom. So he does this performance that then kind of goes to rehab. You see him, it's kind of a flash forward, very much of rehab. And then it's kind of the last scene of him doing a stand-up show and then him thanking the people in his life, because as he's doing this stage show, this biggest show, and that he finds out that his grand's died, and because he's been too busy on his drugs and that, he neglected it. So I think that his nan passing is kind of the turning point that turns him. And then it has kind of a open mic night kind of, or an open mic night, a kind of evening with Robbie Williams, and then obviously he thanks his parents that he's alive, and he kind of has resolutions. That's him sober, and I don't know when this was within his life, but that is kind of how it ends. And I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. There is a massive scene that they did of the dancing and the music. They used like Relight My Fire, which is obviously kind of a cover. I don't know how much of this is true. When I read on my IMDb, it doesn't disclose how much of it is true and how much of it is not. If the boys were said, he doesn't paint himself very much in a good light through a lot of it with all the drugs and that. So I think quite a lot of it is actually true, because I wouldn't think to do a biography and say, like, you know, I was a really bad, well, not really bad person, I was just on drugs and depressed and all this stuff. And I think there are these aspects that come through quite quick, which make it good. There's a massive dance scene half the way through the film, which is absolutely amazing. And when you heard that they were going to do this and paid everybody and all these shops to do this massive, it's probably like a 5-minute dance scene to rock DJ and other stuff. And then obviously the Queen died 2 days before and they had to cancel it, but still pay everybody, and they had to get extra finance and stuff. But that worked amazing and stuff like this. And I must admit, if I would rate this movie, I'd rate it 8 out of 10. I can't really see too much that would go against it. There are some fantasy, I would say, type, and him being in a monkey, but he being in a monkey works so well because he is kind of, as I think he kind of says, he is kind of a cheeky monkey and it's monkey business and stuff like this. But I think when he sees versions of himself in the crowd, it being humans and then there be a digital ape or younger version or different version of him, makes it stand out so much more. Whereas if you just had somebody who looked like Robbie Williams and then a Robbie Williams in the crowd, I don't think that would be as impactful. So I got where that come from. Obviously, it does have drugs, drug misuse, alcohol. There's a lot of dark stuff in there. So I would just be a little wary of that. If obviously you can be a little susceptible. He doesn't glorify it. He obviously understands he was going through depression and a lot of other stuff, and that was just his release. I think he can be very cheeky in how they've laced his recordings into it. It does, even though there are dark bits, there are joke bits setting in there which kind of lighten the tone, I think, which don't make it as, you know, I've seen some dark movies. I mean, the Iron Claw, I think I come out and I was so like, oh my God, this is so depressing. Whereas this movie, I didn't. It was his story of how he just had a lot of issues, so to speak, and a lot of doubts. And unfortunately, he went down a lot of long roads before finally getting to where he was. But absolutely a great watch. I would definitely recommend Better Man. As I say, one of my favourite movies of 2024, as I can picture now, even though I saw it on the second day of 2025. I've been Cypher Sigma Screen Time. Hope you enjoyed my movie review of Better Man. Have you seen this movie? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and I shall see you in the next one.